What is life without it all? And if I could choose. Hi everyone, welcome back to Mental Melodies. This is your host, Carmynn Bradley. I have no idea what episode we're on now, so I've lost track. We are on episode 8. Thank you for watching. I've been getting a lot of feedback online from people, some tips, some compliments, some just heart emojis, and like I've said previous weeks, I'm just really grateful for everyone tuning in. Thank you for your eyes and your ears. This has been just a really powerful thing for me, being able to host this show. I've been learning a lot about myself. The thing that I kind of wanted to talk about in the first segment today is a topic that I've brought up in past weeks about setting intentions, because there have been a lot of shifts in my life and I've been having a little bit of difficulty managing everything. And so I had to kind of take a step back and reevaluate what I was doing on my day-to-day basis and how it was helping me and what was hurting me. And I was reminded of what I said, I think it was in the last episode, it's either that or the one before, and I was talking a lot about personal responsibility and just like throwing it back on you. And I talked about how there is a lot more, I think, that we have control over that we don't really realize we have control over. And so there are two things that I've kind of worked on over the past 5 years as I have been managing my own mental health and physical health. And two of those things are a morning routine and a nightly routine. I have still not quite figured out what a nightly routine is because my schedule is all over the place. But I do believe that the morning routine is it's a key aspect in being able to take control over your day and over your life and over your mental health. And so I have been trying to take back my mornings lately and spending more time to myself before I interact with other people. There have been a lot of different things that I've done in morning routines in the past. I used to get up early and write a lot, which I've mentioned before, and lately it's just been more about getting up and exercising and then spending some time with my music again before I interact with other people. So that's something that, again, it's just really crucial to have small things that help you to break apart the stuff that you have to do. And I'm going to bring on a guest today. I probably should have said that earlier. He is a mentor of mine. He is also a family member, but today I'm bringing him on as a mentor and an inspiration. He's an author and an artist. Currently, he's doing photography in town, so you may have seen him. And he has a lot of experience with his own mental health issues. And he's watching right now, so I'm like, which words should I use? But he also has a lot of insight, and he has studied a lot and read a lot, and so I think that we're going to learn a lot from him today about what he's been through. Something I was thinking about that I would like to possibly touch on is the perception that people have of mental health, and I don't think I've talked about that a lot in past episodes, maybe like touched on it briefly. But one thing that I'm finding really powerful about being on this show is that people are kind of popping out of the woodworks and asking me questions about things in the middle of the week, or like asking me when they can watch the episode, or asking me if they can come on, or talking to me about my music or their music. I have a friend, Rando, if you're watching, who is also writing an album about mental health. And so it's just really cool, all of these people that I'm connecting with, and I feel like what I've said in past weeks about kind of like my voice being out there and things being said that I need to say is really coming true and coming to light. And so that's really cool. So I wanted to do a couple like shout outs or reach outs in the beginning of the episode, because we are really looking for sponsors for the show. So I want to throw that out, and I'll remind you at the end. It's a total tax write-off, and it will help to add to the vision that I'm kind of seeing unfold as the show is unfolding. So I mentioned that I want it to be bigger than just a talk show, and I've had this vision for a long time about being able to provide mental health services to people who don't have access to it, mostly financially. I would like to be able to obviously benefit from my work and be able to spend more time creating music for the show and planning it out and meeting with guests before they come on, all of that, you will be helping with that. But then beyond that, I want to give back. I want to affect mental health in schools. And like I said, I want to be able to provide mental health services to people. I know this is something I've told my uncle before. I just think it's really important that when you have a lot that you're able to give it back. And so that's kind of where I feel like I'm at with it right now. So yeah, like I said, one thing that I really want to touch on again that I did ask our guests today to think about was morning routines, nightly routines, small things that you're doing to manage your mental health. So I've really experienced a lot of that in the last week. I feel like every couple weeks I come on here and I talk about how I had a little bit of an episode, and I did that last week. So this is definitely helping me to kind of see my own shifts. I've been diagnosed with so many different things, so it could be manic depressive episodes. Who really knows? It's hard when you become a therapist yourself to not label yourself as everything in the DSM-5. And so I come on here and I'm just like diagnosing myself half the time. But it is really true that coming on here and I've been forced to evaluate my life in ways that I wasn't really doing. And in a way, I felt like I kind of like fell off the bandwagon for a bit. I wasn't really taking care of myself as regimented as I had in the past. So I talked about like channeling parts of myself. If I go back to 2020 as a year I've talked about on this show a lot, where I started writing vision boards and I started doing yoga every day and I was running a lot. And back then I was setting daily intentions. And I mentioned how this started with this kind of weird premonition, and it was just like the word daily intention. And I knew that it meant something. I don't think I've told the whole story before. But I was like on a motorcycle with my boyfriend at the time, and I like tapped him on the shoulder. I was like, we can't go on this date. I have this thing that I have to do. And I couldn't really describe what it was that I had to do. I just knew that it was something. And I ended up going upstairs and changing the whole room that we had upstairs into this studio. And I had a background behind me, and I wrote like the daily intention on a board, and I like decorated the wall. And then I was going to basically create this show, I think. It's weird. And but back then I wasn't ready for that, and I didn't really know what it was going to look like. But it was like me planting the seed. It was this weird premonition. And then the room got taken over by all of his roommates, and I was trying to do something on social media and use my own like Instagram handle to create something. And obviously it didn't come to light until now, but I'm just seeing so many of these things that I started back then that I wasn't even really fully aware of until they happened now. And so here I am in an actual studio hosting a talk show about the stuff that I wanted to talk about then, 5 years later. And it's just insane to me. Like, I keep experiencing things like that. And it's so interesting to be on that side of it. Right? I've watched, Tony Robbins and Mel Robbins. They're not related, right? Anyway, Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, like Simon Sinek, all these people that are out there, and they are what's the word I'm thinking of? Not professionals. Oh my goodness, I can't find the word. People who are respected and for what they say. Experts, thank you. You were whispering it to me and I couldn't hear it. But they're experts on topics like manifestation. I've mentioned breaking the habit of being yourself, and what's his name? My mind is so foggy today. But anyway, I'm in a spot now where I feel like I can say 5 years ago I planted these seeds and now it's happening. And I know that when you're in that spot where you're just thinking about where I want to be in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, or how I'm going to get out of this job I don't want to be in, or how I'm going to be able to dedicate to my art, or how I'm going to be healthy, it feels like almost impossible, or it feels like the destination is so far away. But once you start getting the ball rolling, it just becomes like a day-to-day thing where you just do it day after day, morning after morning, night after night, and then eventually all of that adds up. And so it's really important to sit with yourself in the beginning stages and allow yourself to be patient. There's a definition of patience that I've been sitting with for a while. Hopefully I can find it in my brain. It's like patience is not waiting, but it's the ability to remain calm while waiting. I don't think those are the exact words. I'm always quoting like Instagram and Facebook quotes on here. Totally reliable. But they're very meaningful to me. I always just see like snippets of wisdom, and that one has been really helpful for me, especially in these little episodes that I've been mentioning. I've been really overwhelmed at times as this show has been building and as my job at the Sphere has been getting more time consuming, and as I've gone from writing music to starting a band to like upgrading to a different guitar, and all of these things seem to be happening, and sometimes I feel like I'm being like dragged down a rapid waters and I'm not really in control. So again, I have to like take a step back, maybe get off of the boat for a minute and go out on the shore. I'm thinking of this like metaphor, I guess, where if my life is like a river, sometimes I feel like I have control and I have my own oars, and sometimes I feel like I'm not in control at all. And when my emotions start to get ahead of me, I do have to take a break from all of those wonderful things, because I've had moments in the last week where I've been very negative, like woke up feeling negative, not grateful for the stuff that I have or the people around me, even though I have so much to be grateful for right now. And I've had to literally combat those thoughts in my mind. Like I woke up Sunday, I think it was, at a 12-hour shift at the Sphere, and I just woke up with a headache, not feeling so great, and wanted to sit in that, where you just like fall back and let those thoughts overcome you. And instead I took a moment to be grateful for little things and big things. But I was telling myself I'm really grateful for my job. I looked at the toilet seat, said I'm really grateful for this soft toilet seat. I looked at my little dog, I'm really grateful for this little dog. Just anything that I could find around me that I was grateful for to change that. So going back to what I was saying about where I'm at in this space right now is focusing on what I could control, so that I could get back to where I wanted to be, so that I could feel the way that I wanted to feel. Because, and I've said this on the show before, it's valid to give yourself space to feel those negative emotions. If I'm feeling sad, I want to cry it out for a bit, but I don't want to sit in those spaces. And I know I'm going to run out of time. I'm rambling today. There's like so much to say. But I know that our guest coming on has experienced these moments, and I would like to ask him about that, where you do get stuck, like you get stuck in a period of depression. How do you get out of those? How do you make them not last as long? Those sorts of things. So anyway, we're going to come back with a guest after the break, and I will see you very soon.
Traditional TV is going away. Hollywood is starting to fade. People are demanding real stories from real people. Our voices are now being heard in our own way. Podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok Live are becoming the norm. Internet TV has now reached the highest demand in human history. Social media shows is now the new media of the century.
Hi, I'm Deacon T with Modern Word Ministries. It's great to be with you today. Just a short little promo for our show. Every Sunday morning we have service, and you can follow us at 10 a.m. Pacific Time on modernwordministries.org. And if you missed us or you want to see some of our older messages, go ahead and check us out on socialmediashows.com every single morning at 9 a.m. It's a great way to kick off your day, get a little bit of the word in you, get something uplifting, get you started off on your way. If you're looking for prayer or you need some help, reach out to us. If you go to our website, again, that's modernwordministries.org, you can interact with me via telephone, via DM, text message, whatever you want. I'll get right back to you. So if you need prayer, you need help, you just need somebody to talk to, Modern Word Ministries is here for you. We are your church in the community. So until you see you next time, be blessed, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. This is Joseph Skoda with Social Media Shows. Well, I thank all of you for your support through these last several years, and it's been a lot of fun. We've given people a voice they never had before. Now, Social Media Shows is always collaborating with our veterans to help them do things and help out the veterans who are struggling today. And we teamed up with GI Connections, connecting veterans with resources. So please consider helping and donating to this great cause, because we're always doing things for veterans. So GI Connections, Social Media Shows, and you is what makes the world a better place. Once again, Joseph Skoda, proud United States Air Force veteran.
Welcome back. We're here for the second segment of Mental Melodies. This is your host, Carmynn Bradley, and as promised, we have a very special guest here today. So I've given you a little tidbit about him. He's done so many different things. He's an author, photographer, award-winning author, columnist, genius, all those things. I'm going to let him introduce himself, though. It's true. So can you tell our guests or our audience about you?
Sure. My name is Joshua Dagan, although everybody calls me JD. Let's see what I've done. Well, I grew up in musical theater. Always wanted to be a singer, but I really sucked at it. So I was a professional dancer through my teens and then started studying voice. And by the time I was 23, I was singing in satellite theaters with San Diego Opera. So again, setting goals and working, doing whatever it takes. I lost my voice, unfortunately, to a medical condition when I was 30. However, before that, I had started writing columns for a magazine in Los Angeles. And when I lost my voice, I really had to turn to writing. I have since 3 of my novels have been published. 2 novelettes, 3 short stories. You can put in Joshua Dagan, D-A-G-O-N, into Amazon, and you have to hit enter because I'm not famous enough to be in the drop-down menu. So put in the name, and there are 8 titles. There are 8 titles under there. Let's see. So while I lived in LA, I lived for a very, very long time with an undiagnosed severe mental health disorder. But it was undiagnosed because I was a very severe drug addict. It wasn't until I got off of drugs that you need to be off for about a year, roughly, before psychiatrists can accurately diagnose you. While you're self-medicating, it's just not possible. So I got sober I got off of drugs in 2005, and I finally got off of alcohol and prescription medication in 2013. So it'll be 11 years in February. I haven't been able to publish anything. I haven't been able to write anything since I got sober, and I thought that was just over. And kind of it is. I kept asking myself what was next, and my therapist, every time we met, he said, "Okay, what's next? What's come? Keep your mind open to something that's next." And I went back to school. I studied at UNLV. I studied literature and photography at UNLV when I went back when I was 41. And I won the National Trio Award from the United States Congress for Outstanding Achievement in Adult Education. But I studied photography. At the time, I just didn't have the funds. The cost was prohibitive to really make a go at photography. But fast forward a decade, and it's really not anymore. We have the funds we've invested quite a bit of money. A mentor of mine, who's a professional photographer in New York, came back into our lives and kind of refired, relit a fire underneath me to do this, and I went all into it. I like bought a whole studio and like everything, like every light, every class. I've been going back to class for photography, and every class I see a light I don't have, and I'm like on Amazon ordering that. I need that light. So so I've got that going, and it's been going really well. I did it specifically because I do have some problems with being bipolar, being a manic bipolar. And there are times that I have debilitating depressive episodes that can last for weeks, which means I need a job or a hobby that it's easy just to stop, just to call and say, I can't, I've got to cancel, I can't do this job, I can't do this. And this seemed pretty perfect. But things are picking up. I've done some headshots. I've been asked to photograph some fashion shows and some advertisements. I'm doing another fashion show on Saturday. I just was published in 3 different issues of magazines, and that's where I'm at. That's who I am. I'm very impressive. I hope you all are getting that. So.
It's very true. I have 3 things running through my mind that I want to touch on. And one of them is that this is my uncle. I don't think I said that. I said you were family. But what he was mentioning, needing to be able to cancel. And the interesting thing when I go back to talk about how like there have been seeds planted for me, my uncle has been my mentor in writing for a very, very long time. And when I moved to Las Vegas in a weird, like, manic episode, didn't really know where I was going, landed at my grandpa's house, and I knew shortly after I got here that you were going to be monumental in my life, and you already were, but I just knew that you being here meant something. And it's so interesting because we've been canceling on each other for years, and then we meet up and then we say we're going to see one another, and in the past year we've been seeing each other much more frequently, and our lives are coming together. It's like you're photographing friends of mine and participating in fashion shows that I have been invited to, and it's just been this really cool thing where our paths are colliding, and that's just lovely. So I guess I'm going to let you decide where to go next, because I had one thing came up in the beginning. You were talking about writing, which sounded like writing as healing, and I wanted to know if you could expand on that.
Yes. So singing was a passion forever, and I put my life into it, studied. I'm the type of person that when I get my teeth into something, I will read every book I can get my hands on. I will find the finest coaches. I will just go. If I leave any stone unturned, I feel like I've failed. So like I said, I did reach. I wanted to sing opera, and I did. I sang Compromario with Compromario roles, which are bit roles. They're walk-on roles with SDO when I was 23, 24, and then moved back to LA and was a pretty successful. Well, I did stand-up comedy too. They let me on stage, even when I was a bad singer. They let me on stage because I could be funny at times. At times, I could be funny. So they let me do that, but then eventually they stopped making me be funny, and they just let me sing, and I could get up and sing in French or and just bring the house to silence, and it was so. It was just so validating to have a plan come together like that, and then to lose it, for just no reason. No doctor could tell me, what I said. Was it drugs? I've done a lot of drugs, so I've done a lot. Name the drugs. I've done it. Was it drugs? And they said no. We don't think it had anything to do with drugs. It was just a thing that happened. And I remember lying on the floor of my apartment, I think for about 3 days, just staring at the ceiling, thinking I didn't want to live anymore. So I decided to die, to kill myself, although I chose a circuitous way to do it. I decided to party myself to death, which sounds like a lot of fun, and it was, but it didn't work. It didn't work out. So anyway, at the same time, however, I had been writing satirical editorials for a magazine called Noise, an international nightlife magazine in Los Angeles. And I had pitched a series of articles to my editor about giving these drugs a personality and having conversations with them. And so he loved it. I started writing one, and I was allowed to print maybe 1,500 words, and I passed that, and then I passed 15,000 words, and I was like, what am I doing? And when I passed 30,000 words, I thought, I'm writing a book. So that was the beginning of my writing career, which, getting back to what you were saying, as a tool, as a coping tool, and you talked about a morning routine. I mean, I jumped out of bed every morning and ran to the keyboard. I was so excited to do this. And it got so, I would be so in the zone doing this that I didn't have time to think about anything else. In fact, I would find myself squinting at the screen, trying to figure out why I couldn't see. And it had gotten dark, and I'd forgotten to eat, and the day had gone, and I had no idea what I was doing. So that was 3 novels, like, came out that way. But then, you know, I kind of burned out on the industry, was disillusioned by, you know, I did have some success. I traveled the country. I was allowed to do a lot of things that most people never get to do, like speak to whole rooms of people and panel with just the biggest names in the industry, and get to know the industry from that side. And once you do, it just kind of took the wind out of my sails in terms of what was next, in terms of what I wanted to say as an author, and that just never came. That just never. I started writing a new novel, and like, so 7 years later, it was only like 2/3 done, and I was like, I'm not going to finish this. So I finally gave that up, and the photography came along, and I've rambled off your question, haven't I? Have I rambled? What was
No.
I rambled off her question. She's just being polite.
No, you didn't, because I asked you about writing as a healing modality, and then I felt that what you ended on was a great segue, because that's something that I've struggled with, is being able to let go of something. Like, being a therapist was something that was very hard for me to let go of, but to be able to say, I know in my heart that I need to move on from this and to move on to something else. And that sounds like that's been a part of your journey, is, you know, singing moved into writing, and writing turned into, would you say photography was next?
It turned out to be. It's an agonizing, those are agonizing transitions, though, as I'm sure you're aware. They're really, really tough to give yourself permission to let go of something that has been such a healing tool, such a place. My old therapist and I used to call it a place to put the crazy, you know, something to focus on, to take us out of our own heads. And thank God for the photography, because I haven't felt this way since I first started writing, where I just love taking the photographs, but more I love the editing and computer processing, and I get so involved that suddenly it's dark and I can't see, and I haven't fed the cats, and they're all over me like screaming, and so it's been a really, really, really big blessing in my life in terms of my mental health. Yeah.
We're about to end this segment, so I want to end with something I posted on Facebook. Where this person was standing in front of her trauma, and then she threw, I think you saw this one. There was a sheet over it, and then she scribbled humor on the sheet, and then there was like a little thought bubble that said, I'm still here.
I'm still here.
But how valid is it, though, that humor does help? Yes, it can be maybe a negative coping mechanism, or maybe you need to like acknowledge it more, but also I think that it helps to take away the shame. Like, getting into stand-up comedy myself, it's an interesting space where people talk about things that ordinarily you wouldn't say out loud, and this is a space for that too. So I wanted to kind of end with that. Thoughts before we take a break?
Okay.
Cool. All right. See you back in a couple minutes.
All right.
The year is 2980, and we now know that death is not the end. A soul can be extracted from the recently deceased and be used to create a blue liquid called essence. It can bring a person back to life.
We'll get her back.
I hope so.
It's an expensive process used by the rich and powerful. The rest, they do what they can to survive.
Stay right there.
You told me you're hiding from some dangerous people.
Let's knock on the door. I spent the last year searching for the Deep Star. A bounty so big that the entire galaxy could be yours.
People have been looking for the Deep Star for years. It can't be found.
It's because they can't find the distress beacon. I know where it is.
If we find the Deep Star, we could get enough credits to bring Mom back.
Blast off.
Guys, we have company.
You can run, but you cannot hide. Prepare for impact.
I am now authorized to take action.
And now you die.
No!
Ready to buy a home? Whether you want to move out of your parents' home for the first time, own a home after renting for years, or buy a place with a spouse or partner, purchasing your first home is a big step. Finding the right home for you and your family has never been easier. New American Funding can help you determine how much house you qualify for, what your payments may be, and get you pre-approved, which will help you put in a stronger offer when you do find your new home. Before you start the home buying process, it's important to consider everything that you want in a home and what that means to you. There are several things you should consider when buying a home. The neighborhood. Location, location, location. School district. Review what school district the house is in. Even if you don't have kids, having a home in a desirable school district will pay off when it comes time to sell your home in the future. Commute times. Check the routes to work, school, grocery stores, and more to see how busy they are and how much time these routes will take. Crime rate. Before you get too involved in the home buying process, check out the crime rates for the neighborhoods you are interested in. Our complete property profile report can give you property ownership, historical tax and mortgage data, neighborhood and school data, local market conditions, and more. Find the right home for you and your family with your complimentary property profile from New American Funding. To get pre-approved or to get your complimentary property profile, contact us today.
Welcome back, everyone. Here we are with our third segment of Mental Melodies. This is your host, Carmynn Bradley, and our guest, Joshua Dagan. He mentioned getting into depressive episodes that last a few weeks, and I was wondering if you could touch on that and maybe explain what you go through to somebody who wouldn't understand it.
Well, there are two kinds. There are the kinds that are really technically just really massive anxiety episodes that have a triggering event. So if there's a triggering event and it sends me into a downward spiral where I just can't function, that's really not technically depression. Manic depression just comes out of nowhere, where I wake up in the morning and I feel like very sluggish. I'm irritable. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to be touched. I don't have any motivation to really do anything, even check my email or check the mail. And I do have some strategies that I've learned over the years to try to help with these things, to kind of get my mind out of, at least initially try to get my mind out of those spaces. And that is to talk to someone. Usually interacting with a person kind of helps to take on their energy. It helps a little bit to take on their energy. Hopefully they're not taking on mine. That helps. Or just watching TV. I know it sounds lame, but if I give myself permission to sit down and just turn on a TV show, especially something that makes me laugh, and I can become invested in that show and in that genre, then and I can laugh and it makes me feel better. That helps. One not so healthy way of dealing with depression is eating, although I do engage in that. But when it gets bad, and I'm talking about the times that it lasts 2-3 weeks, I simply cannot function. I can't answer the phone. I can't leave the house. It feels like if I know I'm not constantly in a fetal position on the sofa, just vaguely watching Shark Week, but I know that's not constantly what's happening, but it feels that way. My husband recently was talking to another friend of ours about my manic moods, and he was saying that my episodes of high productivity and happiness are much longer. They can last for months, and I thought that's not true. They don't last very long at all. But I think the illusion is that they just seem to go by so fast. When I'm happy and I'm productive and I'm getting things done, it just seems to go by so quickly. But when I'm depressed, when that strikes me and I just don't have anything left in me to do, barely get dressed, or it just is so slow. It's so agonizingly slow. Every minute is an agony. I look at the clock and it seems to have barely moved, and I just don't know. I don't know what's going on, and I question every decision I've ever made in my life. I question whether or not the accomplishments that I have really even happened. I feel enormous imposter syndrome, and I just go through these absolutely irrational thoughts to where I have to get up and look at my bookshelf and see my name on the books I've written and see the awards and touch them and make sure they're really there. I know that sounds insane, but I'm insane. So I do these things and then end up back on the sofa just trying to focus on not focusing on where my mind wants to go, trying any strategy I can to get out of the place that is just a downward spiral. It's almost impossible to break out of it. It's very difficult.
So then, the day that it stops, is it just that you wake up and you feel better, or is there something that you've done over the years to make that happen more quickly? What is that like?
It stops, but it's incremental. It's not like I wake up one day and it's over. Mm-hmm. Usually with depression like that, what makes it much worse is chronic insomnia comes with it, where mm-hmm. I'm not only useless during the day, but I lie in bed at night and go through the same problems. And sometimes I don't know, and I take medication that's supposed to help me with this. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it'll work. I'll get an hour, I'll get 2 hours of sleep, and that'll be enough to kind of at least psychosomatically make me feel like the cycle is a little bit broken. Mm-hmm. Maybe the next night I'll get a little bit more sleep. Mm-hmm. It motivates me to do things during the day. Something that helps me with depression is to just move. Mm-hmm. It seems impossible when I'm just in so much pain, mm-hmm. especially if I haven't slept. My whole body hurts. It's a physical thing. My head is exploding, my body hurts, and I just don't want to do anything. But mm-hmm. when I get that little glimmer of hope, it looks like I'm starting to sleep again, mm-hmm. then I'll want to get up and maybe clean something, mm-hmm. or go outside, or just go get the mail, or just do a little bit of exercise. And it just kind of builds that way. And it does take time. It takes time, but it does eventually end. And apparently, according to John, it lasts for months. But I don't know who he's talking about. So.
So you mentioned that you were undiagnosed for a while, and I've talked a lot about awareness on the show and how awareness plays a role in healing, because obviously if you don't know what's happening or you don't you're just not aware of your cycles or your shifts, then like where do you go from there? So how did it change or get better once you did find out? And then how has awareness played a role for you in your healing journey?
So there used to be a common thought amongst in the psychiatric community that mental illness, at least severe mental illness, didn't begin to manifest until your early 20s or so. That has been proven to be not true. Symptoms of severe bipolar disorder have been observed in children as young as 8. My psychiatrist, with 2 or 3 of them, have been convinced that I was at least 10 years old when I started to exhibit these symptoms, although that was the 1970s and nobody in the world ever suspected that a child could have a mental illness. So when I was in San Diego, and a friend convinced me to try a hit of ecstasy, and I said, no way, dude, drugs are right now. I said, okay. So I took it, and I was talking about that experience with my psychiatrist, and she said, that was probably the first time in your life that you felt any relief from your symptoms. And so of course you sought that type of relief. And of course you self-medicated, because that was the only time you felt like you weren't just off in the world, like the whole world was an adversarial place for you. So I went many years, many years, 16 years of self-medicating. Well, maybe not that long, because I was diagnosed in 2005. But I got off heavy drugs at that time, and so I was able to be diagnosed. By then, my mental illness was huge. It was so out of control, and they had no idea how to even begin treating me. They were just tossing the most hardcore, antipsychotics at me, and of course I wasn't sleeping. I hadn't slept in 9 days and nights, I think, when I met the psychiatrist I was with for about 12 years. And her concern first was that I sleep. But then it was really touch and go for a long time, and I think it took a decade or so. It's a slow process to find the right kind of compounds and the right dosages and in the right combinations to get to the point where you are at least semi-functional. And even today, I can't say that I'm fully functional. I have maybe between 8 and 10 hours a day with a good cocktail of medication that I take now, where I can function. But you don't want to be around me the rest of the day. It's not. You don't. Ask my husband. You don't want to be around me. So, did I digress from your question again? Or?
No, you didn't. I'm just blank-minded, so I'm thinking about where to go next. So I guess I'm thinking about how to maybe tie it into what we were saying about morning routines. I had an experience when I was really depressed back in my 20s, and that was, a time when the depressive episode was very, very long. I had a therapist say to me that ordinarily motivation works like you have horses driving a carriage, whereas when you're depressed, you kind of have to get behind the carriage and push it, even though you don't feel like it, which is something that you touched on. And so I'm wondering about the power of that. Like right now in my life, I've been going through a bit of a shift mentally, and I've really had to take a step back and consider, like, what is it that I am in control of? And there's always that balance. It's hard to find that balance of, like, okay, so I wake up and I'm feeling that way. I'm depressed. I'm irritable. I don't want to talk to anybody. How long can I lean into that? Like, do I need rest? So I just lean into it and let myself be depressed for a while? Or how quickly should I start to just, like, really fight it and try to take control over it?
I find that I can't give in to the mental illness ever, especially at the beginning of the day, because we're people too, and people get depressed, people get upset, people have bad days, and I cannot blame my mental illness on every bad morning. that I have. I wake up and I have to have my routine. I exercise every morning without fail, and usually I feel great afterwards. The endorphins are wonderful. I really miss them when I don't get to exercise. But the mystery is, where does our human depression and lethargy end and our mental illness take over? And unless we push and push and push ourselves until it becomes obvious, okay, this is my mental illness, I simply can go no further. Until that becomes obvious, then I need to continue to push. I need to continue to try. Otherwise, who knows where it'll end. I'll start blaming everything on being bipolar. Oh, I can't do this, I'm bipolar. I can't open this can of tuna, I'm bipolar. I mean, you know, I can't. John, you have to clean the bedroom, I'm bipolar. I can't allow that kind of thing to happen. So my advice, or at least what works for me, is just to push, because we just don't know. We just don't know what makes us human ends and what makes us mentally ill begins.
That makes a lot of sense. I haven't heard it put that way before, because I struggle with that same thing, I think, where I want to blame this last week on it was a manic episode, or it was my eating disorder, or whatever it is at the time that feels to be the most prevalent. But then at the end of the day, I'd said I really wasn't sleeping very well, and I hadn't exercised in 2 weeks. I got back into the gym, and after a couple of days, I did start to feel better. Then, like you said, it's not immediate. So it would have been very easy for me to just sit back and then kind of be miserable for the rest of the year and let my busyness take over. And I'd be like, well, I'm mentally ill, so there was some stuff at work that I couldn't do because I was starting to get migraines again and all of that. And so I think the hard part is when you're in the beginning and you are starting to make those steps, but you're not 100% yet. And I think there's a part of me that feels like, well, then why should I do it anyway? You know, that when you want that immediate feedback.
Well, we're not special. You know, we're humans, and everyone has to push through. Everyone has tough times. Everyone has agonizing times. And they push through. They have tragedy. They have trauma. And just because they might not be clinically mentally ill, they have to push through. They have to push through and live. And if we don't make that same effort, if we don't do that, then we will never know. We'll never know whether or not we're doing everything that we're capable of doing, or whether we're allowing our mental illness to carry the burden for what we are not willing to do for ourselves. Yeah.
That was such a nice little bow-like sentence. So we're gonna it was just tie a little bow on that. So I guess since this is the last segment you'll be on before we take another break, I would like for you to tell people where they can find you, how they can take headshots with you. If you go on my Instagram, the headshots I have highlighted are his work, and they're just, I just feel like he captured me better than any photographer ever has. So anyway, you told them where to find your books, but anything else, where can they find you? How can they work with you?
Friend me on Facebook. That's the best way. Just my name, Joshua Dagan. I don't think there's anyone else. Maybe there's one guy, but he's really ugly, so you can tell us the difference. Just friend me, and most of the photos posted there are mine. Well, so let's see, my website, but it'll be changing. But it's jd-images.com. The name of my company is JD Images. So jd-images.com is what it is currently. And there's a way to contact me that way, or email me at jd and then the letter Z and then the word images.com. So jdsimages.com.
Perfect. All right, and I'm going to put that all in a slide for when the edited episode comes out. So if you need a visual, it will be there.
Okay, good.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
And we will be back in a couple of minutes.
Hi, I'm Deacon T with Modern Word Ministries. It's great to be with you today. Just a short little promo for our show. Every Sunday morning we have service, and you can follow us at 10 a.m. Pacific Time on modernwordministries.org. And if you missed us or you want to see some of our older messages, go ahead and check us out on socialmediashows.com every single morning at 9 a.m. It's a great way to kick off your day, get a little bit of the word in you, get something uplifting, get you started off on your way. You know, if you're looking for prayer or you need some help, reach out to us. If you go to our website, again, that's modernwordministries.org, you can interact with me via telephone, via DM, text message, whatever you want. I'll get right back to you. So if you need prayer, you need help, you just need somebody to talk to, Modern Word Ministries is here for you. We are your church in the community. So until you see you next time, be blessed, everybody. Bye-bye.
Got Films is a full-service production company that provides motion picture quality content and production services for use in the film and TV industry. Looking for a seasoned crew, high-quality equipment, or other production services for your film, TV, commercial, corporate convention, sports, news, or interview project? Your search stops here. Some of our projects include NASCAR, American Restoration, Pawn Stars, Counting Cars, Top Chef, BattleBots, Forge and Fire, and Street Outlaws. We have also produced over 60 feature films and documentaries. We're ready for all your needs. Whatever your project, whatever your budget, big or small, Got Films got you. GotFilms.com.
Hello everyone, welcome back. This is the last segment of the 8th episode of Mental Melodies. I am your host, Carmynn Bradley. This is an interesting experience for me because I really look up to my uncle, Joshua Dagans, my guest, and so my mind is a little more blank when I talk to him than when I talk to other people because usually he's giving me advice, whereas you know, with other people that come on, I kind of get into my therapist mode and I start thinking about advice to give them. So it was a nice experience to be able to sit back and listen to his experiences and his expertise. And it's definitely going to get my gears turning for future episodes. But the song I chose to sing today is Manic Monday. Who sings that? Cindy Lauper. The Bangles. Thank you. I couldn't think of it. Oh, really? It was written by Prince. That's a cool little tidbit. I did not know that. So I'm just going to sing a little tidbit of that at the end, but obviously that fits in well because we were talking about bipolar disorder today, and I just think it's, again, really important, I've talked about this before, to validate people's experiences, but I think the most valuable takeaway from that conversation was the stuff that JD was saying about the humanity aspect, like we're humans, and where does the mental illness take over, and how much control do we have over that? And that really is what I've been struggling with the last couple weeks, is like, what do I have control over? And I work with somebody who's very outspoken about disabilities that she has, and she asks for accommodations and all of those things. And I've been in spaces before, back when I was first diagnosed with lupus and back when I was first diagnosed with anorexia, where my identity was so rooted in my mental illness at the time that all I could do was fall back on essentially what the mental illness was doing to me, and I didn't feel like I had any control at all. And so I could only manage my life to the extent that I could not succumb to those things, I guess. When I was teaching high school for the last couple years in California, I was having a panic attack every single day. And luckily I had somebody else in my room sometimes and I could just walk around the campus. But I had no idea where I was going. I just was having this weird panic attack where I was running from something and I was like looking for something that I didn't know that I was looking for. And now, 6-7 years after that, I see a huge shift in myself where I do have autonomy over those things, but sometimes it feels like I'm getting tested or something, where I'll have these episodes, manic or depressive or whatever, and I've noticed that I've been almost wanting to lean into them. Like, I'm just so tired of these things happening. Like, I just want to relabel myself and then ask for accommodations and almost limit myself in that way. And And I don't want to do that. I want to be able to say, like, I've struggled with these things, and that's valid. And there are, terrible experiences that I've had because of them, but I don't want that to be the end of it, where, these things happen or I experience these thoughts and that's it. And it's going to be that way for the rest of forever. And that's a trap that I've talked about on the show that I think people fall into. It's really easy. Like when I don't even know how old I was, 23 or something, when I was first diagnosed with major depressive disorder and I was having suicidal thoughts. And the only solution at that time seemed to be to take medication and accept that I would be depressed forever. And I had clients when I was a therapist who had been essentially the same for many, many years, where they're just experiencing this, I don't want to get out of bed, I don't want to do the dishes, I hate my job, and not moving forward. And so where is it that the humanity comes in, where you decide, like, yes, these are things that I'm struggling with, but I want to change my life in some way, and how can I overcome that? And I think it's like trial and error, something else I've talked about. JD was talking about just like little tips. Even if eating is not the healthiest way to handle it, he's trying to figure out how to cope. And I often do that, where I'll try something for a few months and it'll work for a while, and then I realize that it's not serving me, and so I move on to something else. For a while, running was a way that I coped, until I realized that I wasn't really being too kind on my body by trying to run marathons and all of that, and so I shifted. And now I'm in a space where, just like JD has shifted from writing to photography, I have shifted from, I don't even know what came before it, I guess mostly writing to music. Interesting. Anyway, so I'm going to sing a little song for you, and then I'll give you some shout outs, and then that'll be that. Okay. 6 o'clock already, I was just in the middle of a dream. I was kissing Valentina by a crystal blue Italian stream. Well, I can't be late, because I guess then I just won't get paid. These are the days when I wish my bed was already made. It was just another manic Monday. I wish it was Sunday, and that's my fun day. My I don't have to run day. It's just another manic Monday. Well, I have to catch the early train, I gotta be to work by 9. Just another manic Monday. Wish it was Sunday, 'cause that's my fun day. My I don't have to run day. It's just another manic Monday.
Okay, now take two.
Take two, yes, now.
The lyrics.
It's all good. It happens on the show all the time, because I am doing a lot of drafts of songs, and I'm letting myself be vulnerable and just kind of, I don't know, be in the moment with everybody, so it all works out. What was I going to say? I wanted to do more shout outs, so you can find me on social media. Mostly Instagram is where most of my stuff is, Carmynn_Bradley. And that's where you can see my headshots that were done by JD. And reminder to look him up on Facebook, Joshua Dagan, and you can look up his books on Amazon. Be sure to press enter, as he said. You can also find me on Facebook. Actively looking for sponsors for the show, so if you would like to sponsor the show, admin@socialmediashows.com. If you want to come on the show, you can email admin@socialmediashows.com or reach out to me directly. If I do not know you personally, I will want to meet with you first, which I've mentioned. So I want you to think about, like, what is it that you want to get out of the show? What is it that you want to tell our viewers? And yeah, so just really ponder that. I've gotten some people who are just kind of like, oh, I'm interested. If you just want to do it just for influence, that's not the reason to come on. So think about that for a second and then reach out to me. And I just hope you all have a beautiful week, and I will see you next week. Valentino by a crystal blue Italian stream. Well, I can't be late because I guess then I just won't get paid. These are the days when I wish my bed was already made. It was just another man